Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are listening from or watching us from. I'd like to welcome you to today's Africa here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. Uh, this is the program that celebrates the heartbeat of the rising continent. Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio goes live on today's Africa every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And today is one of those days again where we're just having some technical difficulties. So we are starting a little early, but usually when that happens, our chief engineer ensures that we still have the full hour to be able to cover the subject matter before us. And so again, our apologies for the delay. But we are glad that you've joined us. This is the day the Lord has made, and we want to rejoice and be glad in it. We don't apologize for being conscious that life is a gift from God and that every step, every day is a gift from God. So we're delighted. Again, this is your host, Dr. FM, Dr. Francis Munangi Mpindu, coming live from our studios based in Toronto. And our guest today is a very, very special guest, and he is in the U.S., in New York City, I believe, or New York State. And we are looking forward to a very, very good conversation. We're talking about toward generational wealth. Toward is a process. Generational means that we are thinking beyond ourselves. And wealth, what is wealth? Our financial advisor, our guru as far as financial matters, Mr. Green, Andre Green, is going to be helping us to understand some of these concepts. Now, we know that this is a subject matter that is of great interest. I mean, gigantic interest as far as all of us is concerned. Maybe I should say most of us. But we know that there are some systemic historical barriers that have mitigated against most of us being able to have generational wealth. But today we're not going to spend time dwelling on what has happened in the past. This is why our topic says toward, because we are moving toward. Yes, whatever has happened before, we cannot change it, but we are able to change moving forward. Mr. Andre Green, this is a topic that is very, very special to you. Now, would you like to just briefly introduce yourself and let us know a little more about yourself and why this topic is of interest to you?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here. Just quickly and briefly, my history and my past. I have been in the financial services space for over 20 in multiple capacities. Started off on the real estate side. So I was doing real estate as a mortgage loan officer, as a real estate broker, and as a pretty much a resource for a lot of people in my community. And over that time, I accumulated a lot of real estate. I've helped a lot of people buy real estate. I've helped a lot of people sell real estate. And I've also helped a lot of people that were in distressed situations with real estate. And throughout that time, I realized there was a piece missing in regards to education and financial literacy. And a lot of everyone thinks that to become rich and wealthy, and it can be if done properly. I met a few clients who literally had generational wealth. Their parents had bought homes and they lived in them and they grew up in them. And then as they aged and got older, they passed away, they were unable to keep the properties. And this bothered me quite a bit, which is why I ended up getting into insurance. So I got to insurance because I realized that there was a breaking education, that owning the real estate wasn't the full picture. You needed to own real estate, but you also need insurance, because there are two things that are guaranteed to happen: pay taxes and you're going to die. No matter what else happens in the world, those two eventually happen. But always prepare for taxes, but for sell in wealth because the matriarch of the family has passed away. So they don't. Once I got into it, I realized that families were owning assets with debt on them and not able to pay them off to the next generation. That led me down a journey of finance where I started to educate families not only on real estate, but also on how do your finances affect the rest of your life? What should you have? What should you be aware of? And that includes insurance, that includes the stock market, that includes estate planning, financial planning. So all those things come together to give you the proper set of tools to not only create the generational wealth, but to actually execute on the generation. I hope that wasn't too long.
No, not at all. This is very, very insightful, and I'm excited about this topic because I know that even some of my friends and family members have been looking forward to this because this is something that we all want to be a part of. But considering how we were raised and our background, these are not the kinds of things that we generally talk about and or even think about. I mean, we would like to have wealth, but to actually have the tools to be able to do that, this sounds like a very far-fetched idea. But to you, this is not an idea. This is life, and you're saying this is doable. So we know
Absolutely.
that people like yourselves who are gurus in this area. I mean, things just flow naturally. But would you let us know if somebody wants to get started, and I mean they want to get started yesterday because we are late already. I want to get started yesterday. What would be the basic things that we could put in place? Just many of us we have still 9 to 5 kind of jobs. Some of us are retired. Some of us still go to work. But where do we start? Just like, what are the basic steps that we could take in order to move toward generational wealth?
So that's a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, you you
Yeah.
kind of froze a little bit there,
Some
but
of the basics.
okay. We can't hear you, Mr. Green. It looks like you're off air, Mr. Green. Mr. Green, can you hear me? Looks like Mr. Green is having technical difficulties here. He was just sharing with us some of the things that need to be in place, and I just asked him to help us to understand some of the basics, and he was just in the process of just getting into that. And now he seems muted. He's frozen. We cannot hear him. But this is a topic that is very, very dear to our hearts, and most of us we are very passionate about wanting to have generational wealth, but oftentimes we lack the tools. And I think this is why people like Mr. Andre Green, who is a financial advisor, someone who grew up in an environment where he had to see the other side of life and then gravitate toward the other side. And now he has the tools and capacity to be able to share these things with us. I had made reference to some of the historical systemic barriers that have created gaps um, within people or between people, and that is historical. We can't change that, but definitely we want to be able to say, moving forward, what can we do? Mr. Green is back. It's good to have you back. Now, you were just about to get into some of the basics that we could uh, get into in terms of getting started toward generational wealth.
Yes. Yes. So you mentioned a few things there, right? And there's you're never too late to start. So the one of the things I like to highlight with my clients and friends and family is that wherever you're starting is it's you have the opportunity to reach your goal. So the basics to say are: one, budgeting. You need to know your numbers, how much your income is, and how much your expenses are, because what is measured is what is published. So if you don't know how much money you're actually, you won't know how much money you have to save or to invest or to spend. So the number one basic I tell everyone is you need to have a budget. I know it's not a very fun.
Sounds like Mr. Green is still having technical difficulties.
Expenses is probably
Yeah, it sounds like Mr. Andrew Green here is still having technical difficulties. His system is rather choppy, and we are not able to understand the full array of his conversation with us, and that makes it difficult. But he was just highlighting that we need to start with budgeting. We need to have income and expenses so that at least you know what's coming in and what's going out. And I think that most of us struggle even from that perspective. What is coming in and what is going out? Basic, but you can't go anywhere without it. And Mr. Green is absolutely right. We have to um, know what is coming in so that we can account for it. And so I also like the fact that he said it's never too late to start. Wherever you are, as someone said, that the best way to go anyway is to start from where you are. And so we have to embrace, like that radical embrace, that radical acceptance. This is where I am, but I don't want to stay here. I want to move over there. How do I get there? Well, you have to start from where you are, and I think his point is right on. It's valid. You have to have a budget, number one, and let's hope that he is able to come right back in so that we continue with the dialogue. I see that his picture is back on the screen in the studio. And so, yeah, Mr. Green, so you said that it's never too late to start, and we need to start with the budgeting. Your points are very, very valid, and thank you for mentioning that. And then you kind of drifted off, and then we were not able to hear the rest of the stuff that you said beyond that. So, after budgeting, what were some of the things that you mentioned?
Okay, I did. Can you know?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't hear the last thing you said.
I was just saying that I was reiterating what you had mentioned to the listeners and our viewers, that you said it's never too late to start, and we need to start by budgeting, knowing what is coming in and what is going out. And you said if we are not aware of that, it's very difficult for us to go anywhere. And you're absolutely right. And basic as it is, these are uh, valuable insights that most of us need to hear. You know, so what comes beyond budgeting?
Right. So once the budget has been created, then I suggest everyone get to create a plan, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be with a financial advisor. I do recommend it because I am a financial advisor, because a financial advisor will give you a little bit more of a holistic picture, right? Because you don't know what you don't know. So the purpose of having a financial advisor in your corner and investing in that financial plan is that they can give you a full picture view of where you are, how can you where you want to be, and then what's the road or the map to get there. If your goal is to buy real estate or buy a home, there's a certain way to do that. To the stock market, there's another way to do that. If your goal is to which is a very big, a lot of it now, there's a way to do that. What the bulk of my practice is geared towards a generation that I like to call the sandwich generation. So me included, my parents are at the age where they're retiring now. So they've migrated from, my family's Jamaican, so they've migrated from Jamaica, and like many other immigrant families, that generation was taught one thing: you get a good education and you work hard. And if you do those two things, you will have a very comfortable retirement. Over the past 20 years, we've learned that is not necessarily the truth for everyone. So as they now age into the retirement era of their life, or season of their life, they have concerns about, well, do I have enough money to retire? Did I save enough from the job? Having a 9 to 5 is not a bad thing. It's an excellent thing, especially if you're not an entrepreneur at heart. It's a great buzzword right now to be an entrepreneur, but it's not the only thing that's available to reach your goals. Having a steady 9 to 5, having a pension, if you're lucky enough to have that, having a 401k that you save money towards, Social Security, all of things are supposed to help you get towards a comfortable retirement. That, if that wasn't done correctly or properly or with enough savings, you're gonna feel a lot of angst and anxiety now in the retirement. My generation of children are worried about our parents, and we're also trying to plan for our own retirement. What do we do, and what does that look like in terms of how do we save for ourselves while still supporting our parents if they didn't save enough? And if they did, are they converting all of those that they've saved, moving money from savings accounts and those 401ks into other financial vehicles that can now send you money every month, cover your bills, right? Because if you did the budget, you know how much you need every month. Now, if your children are helping you retire and they're planning for retirement, now a lot of them also have kids. So they have children that they're now also raising to get to a point where they need to go to college and hopefully become productive members of society. So that in-between generation, which is why I call it a sandwich, they're raising kids and managing their parents while trying what they need to do. And that's having a plan is the most important part nowadays. Just the money. You need to know what to do with the money once you receive it, or once you accumulate it.
That is a very good point, and I think it's something worth taking note of, because Like someone said that, failure to plan is planning to fail. So if we don't have a game plan of where we want to go, it's very difficult to go there. I like the way somebody put it. They said, if you don't know where you're going, how do you know you've arrived? So it is
Yes.
important to have that roadmap. It's important to have that kind of a game plan. Now, to those of you who just joined us, I know that we started a little late, but you are listening to Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. This is your host, Dr. FM, Dr. Francis Munangi Mpindu, here on Today's Africa, where we bring guests to talk about matters pertaining to us as people and making a difference in our generation. We explore the trends, the talents, transformations that are shaping us as people locally and globally. And we engage in meaningful conversations, fresh perspectives, and stories that remind us that the future is bright. And to have people like Mr. Andre Green here, it's very refreshing because you're bringing perspectives that we don't generally think about. Now, I know you're talking about these things from a layman's perspective so that we can fully understand. You said you need to have a budget, but you also need to create a plan. Now, as you see us as people, and you made mention of the what did you call it, the sandwich generation. It is clear that there are certain things that just don't get easily shaken off. When you're used to doing things in a certain way, even though it's not working, sometimes we just keep on keeping on doing that, even though we know it's not taking us anywhere. And you're saying, no, you have to have a game plan. Now, in your own progress, what were some of those pain points, pain references for you in terms of this is important? I want to invest my life in this, and I want to be able to talk to people about this. What did you see? Uh, what was the turning point for you in terms of embracing this? Sounds like Mr. Andres frozen again. Mr. Green, can you hear me? Sounds like Mr. Green is off the air again. We'll be just trying to capture his own journey in terms of what were those pain points for him in terms of wanting to go down this path of being a financial advisor. Yes, he said that he had seen uh, some things happen to people and he realized that there were gaps, but we were just trying to see if he could get into his own personal journey to help us to understand some of the things that he has seen. Because let's face it, there are some people who have wealth and they don't even realize it, simply because we just don't know what we don't know. And oftentimes, if you don't know, you don't know. And so you could be sitting on a gold mine. So I was just asking, what were some of those pain points for you in terms of making this um, a personal goal, a professional goal for you? What was the turning point for you in terms of being a financial advisor?
Well, the turning point for me, that got me into the trajectory of the lane for being a financial advisor was that, as a real estate broker, on three different occasions, I saw families have to sell their family homes because the matriarch or the patriarch passed away, and they could not afford to keep the properties. And these things were very avoidable if one or two small things were put into place. them being life insurance, right? And the second thing being just basic levels of finance. How do we prepare for our aging family members? So when doing my best to try and educate my family, my community, and my friends on the things that work.
Thank you for sharing that. I think earlier on you had actually made reference to just seeing families going through some difficulties, and you realize that these could have been avoided. Now, there are people today who would say, you know what, I do have a little bit of money, and I would like to see if I can intentionally work toward generational wealth. Are there some things that stand out for you in terms of like, creating wealth is I mean, it takes faith, it takes a risk, but what are some of those areas or specific areas you see as things that people would seriously consider getting into? Yes, you mentioned that it'll be wise to have a financial advisor, but if I wanted to do things on my own, what are specific areas that come to mind in terms of creating generational wealth?
Absolutely. So the first thing I want to say is you need to be intentional. You have to be a very specific goal and a very strong why, because the journey to wealth is not necessarily a easy one. It's easy to understand. So once you realize how much money you're making and how much you can put aside to invest, you need to intentionally invest. Because I'm financial advice to invest, but I'll give you some general places because I have rules and regulations. I can't give you advice or recommendations without knowing your.
Your line was kind of
This is
choppy
what I
there.
will. You need
Your
to put
line got
money
a little
places that will allow it to compound. One of those places will start to generate additional money for your efforts. So what does that look like? When using real estate example, you have what's called appreciation in real estate. You bought the asset at, let's just say 2020, and over time that asset becomes more valuable. Conversely, that doesn't necessarily happen with a car, right? You might buy it in 2024, but it's not always worth more money in 2030. Many times it's worth less money. So you don't want to put a lot of money into a depreciating asset. You want to put it into an appreciating asset like real estate or into the stock market, right? The stock market historically over time has made on to 12% every year for the past 30 years. There are ups and downs, but average it out 8 to 12%. That's a compounding effect. Because what you want to do is you want to keep investing money where your money can grow. And I understand this because I've walked this path before. It is not the easiest thing to do, especially when you're not starting out with a lot of means, which is why the intention is so powerful. My mom says this all the time as a lovely Jamaican woman. Every mickle, which means a mustard can grow into a tree if you're diligent about doing it and on purpose. The intention is what the harvest. So you do a little bit of work, but you do consistent work over a period of time, and it will turn into something.
Mm. This is valuable information, Mr. Green. Thank you very much for being with us. Those of you who just joined us, we're talking to Mr. Andre Green, who is a financial advisor, and helping us to be intentional toward generational wealth. Now, this might sound really uh, basic, but when we talk about wealth, what are we talking about, Mr. Green? Are we talking about the bling bling? Are we talking about
Well, we're talking
you
about
know?
no, we're not talking about the bling bling. We're difference between being rich and being wealthy. The bling bling is the rich. You can be rich and have things don't necessarily correlate to wealthy. So say that rich is loud and wealth is, so wealth are the things that, that that you do and you buy.
You went, Mr. Green, you went
That
off
it
air
doesn't
for a
look
little
like a
bit
lot
there. There were a number of
right now.
things that we didn't get from you. There were a number of things that you said and we didn't get them because you went off air, and I really wanted to uh, have us understand the gist of the difference between being rich and being wealthy. And I said that rich is loud, but wealth is quiet. And I just wanted to pick up those nuggets, and then he kind of drifted off. So, Mr. Green, you were talking about the difference between being rich and being wealthy, and you say that rich is loud, but the wealthy or wealth is quiet. And then you said a few other things, but then your line got choppy and we missed that. Would you mind just helping us?
Yes, no problem. I was saying that being rich doesn't necessarily translate to being wealthy, because you can make a lot of money or you can make a little bit of money, put it in the wrong places that you think are wealth, but they're not actually wealth, right? So wealth is an accumulation period. You want to put your money into things that are not necessarily, they're not the sexiest, they're not the fanciest, they're not even fun many of the times, but they're very, those things being life insurance. No one's excited to buy insurance or to get life insurance, but is for the living, as I like to tell everyone. You can use a life insurance policy to be an asset you can put into it, you can borrow money from it, and you can keep it on your balance sheet as leverage for other things that will create wealth for you. And at the end of the day, when you're no longer here, you pass on this life insurance to the next generation, which is where generational wealth actually comes from. You can automatically make everyone in your family a generational wealthy person by getting life insurance. That one simple thing will create generational wealth. The concern is, did you educate your children and your loved ones as to what they can do when they receive this windfall or lump sum of money? Because you don't want your kids to become wealthy and then to act rich. Those are two different things.
Aha, that is powerful. Education is a very important aspect or component of this journey, and something as straightforward and as simple as life insurance. Now, I know that we like to know that, hey, I'm leaving some money behind for my family members. but you're saying, have we educated them? Um,
Yes.
because I mean, statistics are very good. One in every one person dies, so we're not going to stick around forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what are we doing?
Yeah.
And I think you're giving us some food for thought, and it's very important to think along those lines. Now, what is it that makes us not to jump into life insurance like just like that?
That's a very loaded question. And I will give you a little history on life insurance and the minority community. Let's put it that way. Life insurance is one of the oldest financial products. It's been around for a couple hundreds of years, right? We're talking about going back to the 1800s. And historically, we as a people learn from generation before us. So I learned from my parents learned from their grandparents learned from their great grandparents, right? That's how education is historically passed down from one generation to the next. And in the early 1800s, when life insurance, many of many people that look like us were not given the opportunity or access to buy life insurance, right? Let's start there. It wasn't something that was offered to us as a product because for lots of reasons, they didn't think it was a good idea to give it to us. Then we got to a place where we were legally allowed to purchase life insurance because we saw the value in life insurance, and there were companies that catered to us. The problem came in is that many Joe and paid out life insurance. So when that happens, there's a domino. My mother told my grandmother, life insurance scam, do not buy it, because they had a very bad experience. So they had a policy. They were supposed to be paid money when grandpa passed away, and they never received the benefit, the money, the insurance company. Probably very illegal. It was lots of things wrong with it, but it created a very impactful memory for our great grandmothers that got passed down to our grandmothers, then got passed down to our mothers. And one of the hard conversations that I have now in terms of education is that people's initial thought about life insurance is, one, what is it doing for me? And two, it doesn't do the thing I need it to do, which is not the case anymore because of laws have changed, times have changed. And yes, there's still things that we need to kind of work through, but life insurance is one of the only financial products on the planet that has a guarantee in it. You put your money in the stock market, no guarantee. You put your money in life insurance, there is a legal suit for it. So things have changed, and they've changed for the better when it comes to these things, but we're trying to overcome generations of trauma and information that may have been true at one point, not true today. So, and that this is it's a necessity more than your cell phone, but millions of people have insurance on their cell phone and don't have insurance on themselves.
Wow, Mr. Green, you're starting to annoy me in a good way. I like that. You know, it's it's um, it's it's interesting how sometimes we need somebody else to speak to us about certain things so that we get it. I mean, I usually tell people that it's very dangerous if you become the only voice you listen to. So we really appreciate the perspectives that you're bringing to us today. You actually reminded me of a conversation I had with my mom a few years back. She passed away in 2003 back in Zimbabwe. But when I started making the life insurance for her and for myself when I was still in Zimbabwe, then moving over to North America. I had to give that up, and I asked the company if they could make some kind of a plan to move some of what I had given them over the years, because I said, I'm not going to be using this from here anymore. I'm going to be on the other side. And I remember my mom
Mhm.
saying, it's almost like you're wishing me to die. And I said, no, Mom, not at all. Because she's like, I mean, you're planning about, you're planning for my death already,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
culturally, that's not something we would normally talk about. And
Correct.
yet I realized that, it was something that's needed. And I'm glad you mentioned that times have changed and the laws have changed. And sure enough, when my mom uh, passed away, the the policy had actually matured, and they were able to take care of everything. And the people who were there were really surprised, because they uh, really did not have to do anything. And I felt very much at peace
Yeah.
about that whole process, because I realized that, this is important. Now,
Yeah.
coming to North America, that wasn't the first thing on my mind either, because I was in a survival mode where I'm thinking, I need to make sure
Yeah.
that we're doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And so the life insurance sometimes gets pushed to the side, and you're saying we shouldn't. And I really liked what you said, that that this is something that has a guarantee in it, because all the others are pretty, you know flimsy. Anything can happen and you could lose everything. But this, because times and laws have changed, it's something that we can actually get into. And so these are very, very down to earth ideas that you're sharing with us. You are listening to Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. If you haven't already done that, please visit our website, so that you can like and share Love Bay. You can actually download the app from the Apple Store, and or Google Play, so that you can even make a donation. We do what we do to provide these kinds of services to the community through the donations of people. And we also have scholarships that we create for young people to be able to go to school. So we're here to serve our community. And you can also connect with Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. They are on the app. You can connect with them at 437-778-3299. Again, the number is +1 437-778-3299. Drop us a note, and we're here on WhatsApp. And of course, we're so grateful for the technology around us, so that we are able to stay in touch. So, Mr. Green, you have brought some important things to our understanding, and you're helping us to understand these things. I guess this is all part of financial literacy. Is this something that your parents helped you to get into growing up?
That's a great question. I was very fortunate that my dad was very financially aware and financially educated. So I learned about credit at a very young age. I learned about repaying bills at a very young age. I learned about integrity around money at a very young age. And I think that those things help shape how I utilize money, how I view money, and how I understand that money will amplify things. It doesn't change who you are, it amplifies who you are. So,
Mm,
how you treat others based around money says a lot more about you than the money. So, to answer your question, I was taught at an early age to be responsible with money, and I naturally am a saver. So I understand delayed gratification, which is probably one of the biggest pieces when it comes to building and creating generational wealth is delayed gratification, which is why I mentioned to you earlier, rich is loud because rich is instant, it's right now. Wealth is quiet because it takes time to get there. So you plant the seed today, you don't eat the apple today. You plant the seed today, you eat the apple during the harvest season. So it you have to be okay and understand the process of how to create it and how to build it and how to get there. But you definitely do reap what you sow. And it's a very unfortunate situation to sit with clients and to talk with people who they were eating they were eating the apple and not sowing those seeds, and that has consequences later on down the road. So like you said earlier, if you don't have a plan, you're planning to fail. And I like to tell people, you will have a legacy no matter what you do. What it is up to you.
That is powerful. You will have a legacy regardless, but it's up to you.
Yeah.
There are some things that we do intentionally, and there's some things that we do unintentionally. And I think earlier on you were talking about intentionality, having a strong why. Why do I want to do this? Why am I getting into this? And so I can see how your parents really, your dad and mom,
Mm-hmm.
laid a foundation for you in terms of knowing, the practicality of credit, integrity, and paying bills, and saying that there are some things that amplify you, and there are some things that really destroy you.
Yeah.
Now, as far as young people are concerned, I mean, I'm looking at you. You are, I'm going to play and claim my seniority here. You look a lot younger than I am. And as you look at my generation and those who are older, uh, what are some of the things you could say? And I'm saying this with humility. Humility is one of those qualities. Somebody said, you should never claim humility, because once you claim to be humble, you've just lost it.
Right.
I'm saying this because we want to learn, and it's never too late to learn. Like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. says, you know, uh, the time is always right to do the right thing.
That's right.
So, what are some of the things you would say to us who are older, listening to you as a financial advisor, and just say, listen, I know I don't have the experience that you guys have had because I'm younger, but listen, from where I stand and what I understand now, and
Mm-hmm.
please pay attention to this, or do this, or think about this, or what are some of the things that come to mind for you in terms of educating us, those of us who are older?
The first thing I would say is what used to work may not necessarily work in the future. So do not take the old ways of doing things and take them as gospel. It is very important to lean on and listen to the younger generations because things have changed. And if we had this conversation 30 years ago, no one had really, majority of people did not have 401ks. The majority of people had pensions. And a pension, just for a quick explanation, is you work for an employer for a certain amount of time, normally 10, 15, 20 years. And when you retire, your employer, the agreement is your employer will pay you a salary after you stop working in retirement, right? And that pension lasts for the rest of your life. And it's based off of how much your salary was, how many years you had in, and there's an actual number that they determine before you retire. This is what you'll get paid every single month for the rest of your life. Now, 30 years ago, almost everyone had a pension, and corporations phased pensions out. And what they really did was they moved the responsibility of paying you for the rest of your life to you. Now you have to pay for yourself for the rest of your life. That shift creates a new model and a new way of doing things. And if you were under the impression or under the thought process of I don't have to worry about my finances because I'm going to get paid for the rest of my life, That's been phased out over the past 30 years. So now what do? Right? My generation, we never, no one's ever told us we're going to have a pension. They may have told us we have Social Security, but that's a maybe. But we never going to enter in the workforce did we ever think that we'll work somewhere for 30 years, 40 years, and then retire with a pension. So we will go into the workforce with the understanding of we're going to have to provide for ourselves some way or somehow. For those who have worked for all these years already, you need to understand that things are not the way the game has changed. The rules have changed. So what are you doing now to play this new game? The second thing I will say is do not hoard money. And what does that mean? Not to poke fingers, but your generation is used to, you were raised during a time of you didn't have a lot. So because you didn't have a lot, you hold on to almost everything because at some point in time you believe it will provide some purpose to you in some way, shape, or form. This goes to tools that you use. This goes to clothes that you wear. It goes to little trinkets. And if you're like my mom and my dad, they'll have something, it'll break, but they'll take a piece off of it and say, you know what, I can use this for something else at a later time. That mentality rolls over into your money, where you're saving it for a rainy day. And the part that I think it's a mortality thing, we don't realize that many of your generation is in that rainy day phase of their life. Now is the time, the money that you've saved and hoarded all these years, to live your life. Because many people will pass on not living the life that they wanted to live and not spend that they took a lifetime to save. So you don't, it's a hard thing to grasp, but when you understand what you're doing, you will shift how you utilize the money as a tool, because that's what it is. It's a tool. Because I'm going to tell you right now, all of the money that many of our parents and grandparents have saved up will be spent by their children and grandchildren. We're hoping it's spent in the right way.
Right. That actually takes us back to what you said earlier. They need to be educated in terms of how they're going to spend that money, because you won't be there to see how it's going to be spent. It might actually go to the bling blings, and within a few months, everything is gone, and it's almost like you didn't leave anything behind. And so these are really powerful words of wisdom that you're sharing with us, and I feel very encouraged, and I would like to believe that our listeners and our viewers feel the same way. Having people like yourself, who understand life from a financial perspective, and just say, you know what, there is a sense in which we need to understand that money is a tool. It's not something that is meant to control us, but we're supposed to control it so that we actually have a life. Someone had said that we spend a lot of years, not really looking after ourselves and putting money away, and then by the time you want to actually sit down, you're not healthy enough to even enjoy the money, and everything just vanishes just like that. So you have put it in such graphic terms and realistic terms, and we really appreciate that. Now, two things, I'm looking at our time here. Two things come to mind. So I'd like you to think along the lines of two groups of people. Maybe I should say three groups of people, but that might be a stretch, because I'm thinking we have a group of people who have a good understanding of wealth, and they have created some aspects of generational wealth for themselves and their next generations. And sometimes they're like, I'm not really sure what I should be investing into. But then I'm thinking of the two extremes, the young ones and the older ones, and just words of wisdom. Young people, what would you say to young people? Let's start with the young people first. Young
Okay.
people who, you know, whatever
Yes.
comes to mind.
Okay. Before I answer that, I want to say one more thing about the your generation and those that are at the top getting ready to retire, retiring now. Setting up a trust or looking at a trust is very, very important, because when I mentioned that the money that you've accumulated over your lifetime will be spent, if you create a trust with the right attorney or the right advisor, you have some say over how that money is spent, how that wealth is distributed, and when it's distributed, and who gets what and how much. So you can do all of those things to protect your loved ones, especially if you know that you didn't give them or they don't have the proper financial literacy right now, right? You can put some mechanisms in place so that they get the education or they're talking to the right people, like myself, like other advisors or attorneys that can give them direction, right? Because to answer your question, if you're a young person right now, you're going to come across money in two ways. One, you're going to work for it, and two, you're going to inherit it. And if you're young and we're going to start from the point of you're working for it, I will tell you that the most valuable thing has is time. You don't need a lot of money to start. You just need a little bit of money and a lot of time. And they say that youth is wasted on the young. That's the saying, because none of us realize when we're young how powerful it is to be youthful, because we have the most amount of time in our life we will ever have, and we will never get it back. So use that time to your advantage. You can, it's as small as $50 a week, $100 a month, invested into the right accounts. And the accounts they should be looking at are things that are going to grow either tax free or tax deferred. But more important than taxes is access to capital. Understand that the most important part of money is having access to it, because you don't always know when you're going to need it, but you need to always be able to access it. So, how are you accessing the money? Where are you putting it that you can get to it? That's the most important thing I would tell young people. You have a lot of time, you don't need a lot of money. Take a little bit, and that compounds if you're putting it in the right places. The stock market, into real estate, into insurance. You can put it in these places, and the trajectory is, it will blow your mind, because I do a lot of math and projections and charts for people. And to see what happens to money over 30, 40 years, you wouldn't have to work if you started when you were early. And they don't teach us this in school. If you started out when you're 20 years old, you don't have to work when you're 60. You have enough money accumulated over a 40-year time frame that if it was put in the right places, you'll be very comfortable. And if you live a very modest life, and modest is very subjective, right? It doesn't mean the same thing to everyone. So you can live the life you want to live if you're saving a little bit now to use it down the road. So you're planting those seeds now. The second way a young person is going to come into money is from an inheritance. Now, that is probably the most dangerous part for a young person, because if you give a young person who doesn't have a lot of discipline, who has a lot of youthful energy, a lot of money, they will find every way under the sun to spend it. So you want to give them money with some type of guardrails many of the times. Give them money in chunks, right? You might give them a piece of it when they turn 21, another piece when they turn 30, another piece when they get married, another piece when they have a child, because you're trying to protect them from themselves, like we do with children. We don't know that the stove is hot when we're 2 years old, running around in the kitchen with our mom. But our mom knows that if you put your hand on that flame, you're going to get burnt. So how do we protect our loved ones from things that they don't know yet? Because they don't know what they don't know. And they sometimes don't know that their actions have unintended consequences. So that's what I would tell a young person. Be mindful of how much money, be mindful of how much time you have, because that's your best friend. And if you do receive a lump sum of money, please speak to a trusted source, an older family member, an advisor, someone who you deemed to figured out how to use money properly, and get the advice from them before you start spending all of it.
I'm listening to you and I'm saying, I wish I had met you when I was 16. I would have loved to have a friend like that. But you know what? Life is a journey, and it's never too late to do the right things.
Absolutely.
The words of wisdom you have shared with us today are just incredible. They are unbelievable.
Thank you.
They are believable, but unbelievable. And I have really, really appreciate this. And I mean, I know that quite a number of people are listening in to our conversation today.
Mhm.
And I am so grateful that you have made time. You know what? I have to say this to you. We have to bring you back, and this is not a threat. This is a promise. And I'm really hoping that next time around, we're not going to have any technical glitches at all, so that we
Yeah.
just come into the studio. And if it means that we need to log in a few days before, and we will do that.
Yeah.
But you really, really shared some important pieces of information as far as financial literacy, financial education is concerned. And I think you have given us enough food for thought to implement some things. Now, I know that you have a lot of stuff in your toolbox.
Mhm.
And just as we wind down, I'm just wondering, what are some of those thoughts you would like to leave with us? You said, listen, I've talked about a number of things. I've mentioned this and that and that. I mean, I could pick up some things here, but what are some of those things you'd say, you know what, I'd like to leave this with our viewers and our listeners on a day like today, given the, it's 2026.
Yeah.
By God's grace, we're still here. I used to have a Jamaican woman in our church who used to say, "Any day above the ground is a good one."
That's a fact. That's an
And
absolute fact.
and so life is a journey. It's a gift from God, but
Yeah.
we need to plan. We need to put certain things in place so that we think about the next generations. I'm saying this to give you a little bit of time to reflect on what you'd like to leave with us.
Yeah.
When my mom was much younger, and I was younger as well, she worked for a European family, and that gentleman, he was actually responsible for building houses in the city. And
Mhm.
at one point, he actually went to my mom and said, Susan, you can choose an area where I can build you a house. And my mom's response was, why would I want a house in the city? I
Mm.
am from a rural area, and that's where I will go and settle. When
Yeah.
she told me that, I was like, oh, mom, how could you have? Because you know what? We could have started on a totally different note. But, I'm saying this not to say that my mom was not wise. She just responded in a way fitting with her own thinking,
Yeah.
how she was raised.
Yeah.
I think you brought this to us, in a very special way when you said we have to be open minded. We have to be willing to look at things. Some of the things that have brought us to where we are
Mhm.
not able to take us beyond.
Yeah.
And so, just as we wind down, any nuggets, any
Yeah.
things,
I have a few. I have a few I can share with
please
you.
please share with us.
So speaking to the generation that is at the point in their life where you're either retired or you're looking to retire within the next 10 years. No matter what amount of wealth you've accumulated, it's not too late to set it up properly And you may not, as you just mentioned, you may not be looking at things through a lens or from a perspective that is most advantageous to you. So, with that being said, seek out financial advice before it's too late, because there is a point where it becomes too late, where you're too far gone, where no one can really help you, right? So, think of it. The analogy I like to give people is, think of it like going to the beach. When you're on the sand, you feel very, very safe because you're used to walking and being in an environment that you've been on for 60 years, let's say, for example. But when you get into the ocean, you're no longer on solid ground, and the current will move you where it wants to move you, not where you want to necessarily go. So as you drift further and further away from the shoreline, the lifeguard is on the sand may not be able to get to you. So what information, what tools do you know that can help you bring you closer to land or further out, depending on what you want to do? You need to be able to move with the current, and it will not be comfortable. It will feel very unusual. It will feel very foreign, but it doesn't mean that you're unsafe. It just means that you're in a new territory. So seek out the information from those that are around you, and getting it from myself or whoever else that you trust. Create the plan, because you did all of the hard stuff already. You worked for 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, and you want to enjoy the fruits of your labor. And that is the reason why you were working so hard, to raise a family, to buy a home, to invest, to live the life you want to live. And like you said about your mom, she knew what she was accustomed to, and that's the life she wanted to live. She wasn't thinking about living in the city. She was thinking about, I want to live on the farmland or out in the country somewhere, because that's what I'm comfortable with. And that doesn't take a lot of money if it's done properly. So you can create the life that you want to live at any age. But my concern is for a lot of people who are in that 10-year range. Like, I'm thinking about retirement. I'm really close to retirement, but they haven't done a review of their finances to understand where I am right now, current state, and where do I want to be, future state. Take some inventory of that, because that is the most important thing you can do right now, is to create a plan. And for my young people, you've got a lot of time, so just keep saving a little bit, scrolling away the money. scrolling away the money will definitely, you'll have a lot to harvest if you do it early enough.
Andre, you have given us tremendous food for thought, and things that are applicable. And in this day and age, I know that most of us would have some financial advisors close to us, but at the same time, if Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio would have your information, can people connect with you and be able to offer these kinds of nuggets to people globally, really? Okay. You know what? I know there's some people listening, and they might just want to, because you are on WhatsApp, and they would be able to connect with you. Can you give them your contact details, or what would be the best way for them to find Andre Green?
The best way is through social media or my website. So my website is Andre Talks, TALKS green.com. So you can go to the website. You can book a call with me if you like to do so. I do offer a free 15-minute consultation for those who are completely unsure of what they need to do. If you're a little bit more focused and you know what you need, I also offer a consultation. You can book an hour with me. If you want to connect on social media, I'm on all of the platforms. So Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. On all the platforms, it's Andre Talks Green. So Andre _Talks _Green. And my WhatsApp is my personal cell phone number, so I wouldn't necessarily give that out, but we can connect on the website or on any of the social media or Facebook. and I'd be more than happy to make some time and to teach and educate and help my community globally, right? So it's not just here in the States, because the information is useful anywhere.
Excellent. This is very, very helpful. Andre Green, thank you very much for making time to be with us today here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, this brings us to the end of today's episode of Today's Africa here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, your number one Caribbean African online radio. Thank you for joining me as we reflected on the ideas and voices that are shaping the world. Not just Africa, but the world. And remember, Africa's strength lies in its people, its innovations, and our unstoppable spirit. And what a way for us to be intentional in terms of generational wealth, because we do have responsibility in terms of the now and the future. And as Andre helped us today, we have a responsibility to educate our young people so that they become responsible in the things that we will be able to leave behind for them. And he gave us some great nuggets in terms of things that we could get us started. You know, he mentioned real estate, stock market, life insurance, things that some of us are not comfortable talking about. But you know what? Like he said, you might be uncomfortable, but that doesn't mean that you are drowning. It's actually a way of being able to reach out and obtain the tools that you need. So until next time, stay informed, stay inspired, and keep believing in Africa. Until next time, we want you to remember, today's Africa is where the future is always in focus. And before I sign off, I just want to tell you that coming up at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, the Caribbean Flavor with Mr. Marcus and Miss Gentle Blue will be coming on. And so again, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.